It has been just under a year since the Retroid Pocket 4 was released to great acclaim. How will the Retroid Pocket 5 compare? Let's find out with some comparisons, benchmark and emulator tests to see if it's worth buying or upgrading from the Pocket 4. The Retroid Pocket 5 measures around 7.8 by 3.0 by 0.6 inches and weighs around 280 grams. Compared with the Retroid Pocket 4 measuring 7.2 by 3.2 by 1.5 inches and weighing 261 grams, the new model is a little larger and heavier, but with that small increase in size and weight we get a larger 5.5 inch AMOLED display with a 1080p resolution, compared to 4.7 inch lower resolution display on the Pocket 4. You have the typical layout with a D-pad, dual 3D Hall effect analog sticks and gaming buttons that feel quite comfortable to use. Everything is in within easy reach. Along the top are the shoulder and analog trigger buttons, and on the right side are volume and the power buttons. On the bottom is a covered micro SD card slot for more storage, and in the middle is the USB-C port for charging and connecting to an external monitor, which we will show later. The back has a larger fan grille area for additional airflow and some raised areas to help provide more grip for your hands. These definitely help. The visual differences between the two models are quite contrasting. The Pocket 5 has an all-glass front which looks far more premium than the Pocket 4. The curved edges make it look more visually appealing. In terms of comfortability they are both good. The Pocket 5 edges ahead thanks to the grips on the back. The Retroid Pocket 5 features the Qualcomm Snapdragon 865, which has 4 cores running at various frequencies shown on screen. It has the Adreno 650 graphics processor, which we are interested to see how it compares with the Dimensity processor found on the Pocket 4 series. There is 8GB of LPDDR4X RAM and 128GB UFS 3.1 built-in storage, which you can expand with a micro SD card. For communications, there's Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.1. It runs on a 5000 mAh rechargeable battery. In our high performance battery life test, whilst running Antutu on a loop on the processor's high performance setting, we got a battery life of around 4 hours 15 minutes. Average usage will of course last longer, in the several hour range no problem. While testing the battery life, we also checked the fan noise and temperatures. We got an average fan noise of 58 decibels whilst on the sports fan mode, and the highest at 62 decibels with custom fan settings. You can leave it on smart mode, which will speed up the fan on demand and overall be far quieter. For the highest temperature, we got around 42 degrees C whilst on the sports fan mode. As always, we run a few benchmarks to find out the device's performance and can compare the results with other models. Starting with Geekbench 5, we see an increase in single core performance over the Pocket 4 models, but a drop in multi-core performance compared to the Pro model. There is quite a gap between the Ioneo and AYN models, but these are far more expensive. With Geekbench 6 we again see a small increase in single core performance, and again a small drop in multi-core compared to the Pro model. These are CPU only tests, so maybe we will see a difference when combined with GPU tests. In Antutu, which tests the CPU and GPU performance amongst others, we see a decent increase of around 12% in the scores compared to the Pocket 4 Pro, and an even larger 63% over the original 4 model. In 3D Mark, we ran the slingshot test for legacy benchmarking reasons, and we were not surprised to max out the score. In the more challenging Wildlife Extreme benchmark, we got 1283, a nice increase over the Pocket 4, but almost identical to the 4 Pro score. Some interesting benchmark results there. We do see increases in performance overall, but maybe not quite as high as expected in some results, especially in a CPU multi-core performance. The Retroid Pocket series have continued with a pretty solid front end with their own software. You have a choice of the standard Android style front end or Retroid's own launcher, which does require a little setting up in order to add apps and game ROMs. It is definitely worth doing if you have game ROMs. Give it a path to scan, it will identify the games and download matching box art automatically. It may miss some games, but you can add your own manually if you wish to. Once set up, you can browse the games and it will launch into the appropriate RetroArch core. You also have the Retroid overlay, which has shortcuts to useful tasks such as screen mapping the controller, screenshots and live streaming. It all works great and no complaints here. Whilst most people use these handhelds for retro gaming, there are of course many Android games you can enjoy. The great thing is the screen mapping to the controls, which is very easy to do and works great. Here we have it with Call of Duty, which makes the game far easier to play. You can use this with just about any games with on-screen controls. And for games with built-in controller support, it works even better. We tried a bunch of games and had no issues at all with either screen mapping or native controller support. The Retroid series has always provided great emulation support for its price range, and the Retroid Pocket 5 continues this trend. For all of your 8 and 16-bit, up to say PlayStation era systems, we recommend RetroArch. It should run all of your favourite classic games with no issues at all, and you can upscale, add shaders and so on to improve the visuals. For the more demanding systems, we recommend the dedicated emulator apps, as they generally tend to run more optimal than RetroArch. You get the option to pre-install some popular emulators when first booting, but do remember to update them from the Google Play Store or from their homepages, as some emulators are a bit out of date. The PlayStation emulator DROIX is excellent, and with the Retroid Pocket 5 you can crank up the upscaling to 1080p, even higher, with various graphics improvements with no issues. The games look great on screen. And with the Dreamcast emulators, Flycast and Redream, you should not have any issues with performance either. Every game we tried worked great. With PPSSPP, you can set everything to maximum at 1080p resolution and it looks amazing. You could go higher resolution, 4K even if you wanted. PlayStation 2 performance is overall very good. Depending on the game, you can increase the rendering resolution and have a few graphics tweaks to improve the visuals. Hopefully we see a new PS2 emulator being worked on, as we could see great things for it on handhelds now. Citra works very well as expected. You will likely get some shader caching on the first run through on games, which can vary in the amount of slowdown per game. But overall the performance is very good. You can even increase the rendering resolutions a bit. The Vita emulator, Vita 3K, works quite well. We tried a bunch of games and all were very playable. Depending on the game, you can increase the rendering resolution for improved visuals. The Yuzu emulator is where we start to see a drop in performance as expected. Lower demanding games may be playable, but don't expect to be playing any first party titles. You will need to look at higher end and priced handhelds for faster performance. The Retroid Pocket 5 is an interesting release for a new model of the very popular series. Visually, we see a nice upgrade in design with the curved edges and single sheet glass front, taking clear inspiration from the premium Adreno Pocket S design. And to be honest, it does a great job in terms of appearance, giving it a higher end look. The performance is where we do not appear to see a massive leap. The benchmark tests reveal nice increases in performance over the original Pocket 4, but less so with the Pro model. We do have to keep in mind the price. Compared to the AYN Odin 2, which costs around 50% more, and the Pocket S around 130% more, there is a great balance of price versus performance. Do you need to spend that much more for the additional performance? Realistically, we are looking at increased performance with Yuzu, which is no longer in development. You would see some performance increases with the PlayStation 2 emulator, but again, this is not in development anymore. The Retroid Pocket 5's level of performance fits perfectly into what is actually required if you want to play the vast majority of emulators. If you are outright looking for a new handheld, then the Retroid Pocket 5 is an excellent option for the price. If you are upgrading from the Pocket 4, then the increase in performance is pretty good and well worth considering. Upgrading from the 4 Pro model is a tougher call. There is not a massive increase in performance, and I would say it would be more down to the design, both physically and visually, with the premium look and larger display. Let us know in the comments what you think of the Retroid Pocket 5. Is it worth upgrading or outright buying? We are always interested to hear your thoughts. You can learn more about the Retroid Pocket 5 and order yours from the links in the description. You can help to continue to grow our channel by subscribing if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you back in our next video.